I am thrilled to introduce our presenter today because I've known Eli Eisenberg for a long time. He's a proud retriever. He's one of us. He's an alum. And ever since you left the university, you've always stayed connected, Eli. I mean, he does so much. He is the CEO of VPC Inc., which is a video production company. They create content. They do live event productions. He is, you're going to talk a little bit, I don't want to steal your thunder, but you know, all those UMBC games, basketball games on ESPN, he does it. Our 50-year homecoming here, it was an amazing event, but he also, more importantly, he works with our students. He mentors our students, he has sponsored scholarships for our students, and whenever we reach out to you, Eli, you say yes, so we thank you for that and for all you do for students in UMBC. So let's talk about gaining customers and sales, because you know what? You can have the best idea in the world, but you can't sell it. And you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So let's hear, through challenging times, how you keep those customers and gain sales.
Thank you very much for joining the workshop. And I'll note that the first two sessions, under this umbrella were presentations. This is the first workshop. So I look at this as, again, an entrepreneurial session. So you can stop me, ask questions, ask for more information, less information. You can eat your lunch. You can stand on your head. This is really going to be sort of a free-flowing hour. What I will share is I've been doing what I have been doing for 42 years. So I love what I do, and I can be a talker. But I'm going to try to move through this information quickly or entertain your questions as we go along, because the goal is that you walk away with hopefully either confirming some information or insight that you always knew, or something new. I'm immediately go off script. If you do not follow Jerry Sandusky, Jerry owns his own his own PR and communications firm. He is the voice of the Baltimore Ravens. He does their radio broadcast and the preseason television broadcast, and he is the sports director at WBAL Television Baltimore. I follow him regularly on LinkedIn, and he had this little blurb the other day. So it's Jerry, Gerry Sandusky, letter S as in Sam for his last name. In one of his most recent posts, he wrote, this is just one line: be known for something that is uniquely you, and you will stand out. And that really resonates with me because, there are lots of plumbers and electricians and aerospace engineers and entrepreneurial companies, but you have to be able to stand out. And you will learn a little bit about that during this presentation, because there are a lot of production companies and video content companies, and we are indeed very unique. I will also share, I would like to get a critique from you, if not at the end of the program, maybe share it with Kevin and Emily and Vivian, because while I've spoken to the Entrepreneur Center before, I've actually never taken the time to put together an actual presentation or slides. I can just talk forever. And Vivian always says there's always good insight, but I'm trying to give you some visuals on what we do as a company and the sales aspects of being an entrepreneur. You'll also get sort of some just general good business sense. I will also give credit to the underscore line there of do not get imposter syndrome. Last week's speaker, Julie Lenzer, somebody else you should follow. I came to watch her because she's a dear friend. We used to do some work together. And this is one of her slides about the imposter syndrome. And when she said it, I thought about myself and our company. And the imposter syndrome is you're in an environment or a space and you don't know why you're there, or you do not think you deserve to be there because you're not a player, you're not at the top of your game, you're not a recognizable name. And if for those of you, who may be a little bit older or who like classic music, there's a music group, the Talking Heads, and there's some lines in there of one of their famous songs of, "You're not my beautiful wife, this is not my beautiful house, how did I get here?" That's part of the imposter syndrome. When you hear about some of the things that we've done, you might wonder, how did we get there? So I'm going to start off with a very brief video. It's a 3-minute video. The first 2 minutes is a sales tool that we used. When the pandemic happened, people were not allowed to gather, and one of our core services is as a live events company. So if you can't gather, you lose all that revenue stream. So we came up with a broadcast television virtual model, much more sophisticated than Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Cisco WebEx, that we felt could be beneficial to our clients and clients that didn't even know that we existed. The last 45 seconds, I kind of freshened up the video and put in a couple of little snippets of some of the things that we do, but also threw in some buzzwords about being an entrepreneur that I will hit on in the presentation, and I'm hoping these are buzzwords that you keep in your vernacular every day as you make your entrepreneurial journey in life.
Welcome to our annual
At VPC, we have 28 years of experience turning your ideas into quality live events and video content. When the pandemic disrupted our world, all businesses were scrambling to adapt, but we had a unique challenge, captivating your audience in a world where audiences cannot gather. But we're not strangers to unique and unexpected challenges. It's part of what we do. When we look at limitations, we see opportunities. Opportunities not to compromise on quality, but expand it. Host and stream events virtually. Have live panel discussions, present awards, host Q&A, and more, while giving your entire audience a front row seat.
That's right, and beautifully and professionally packaged, keeping your audiences and your sponsors fulfilled and engaged.
Can we take it even further?
Absolutely. Let's think outside the box. Virtual sets, physical stages, elevating your production to an even greater level. Enjoy all the power and value of a live TV studio cost effectively.
We've led the way in our industry, producing a few hundred virtual broadcast style events since May 2020. With 2020 now in hindsight, we continue to innovate, creating a new hybrid style event, merging a venue ballroom crowd and a remote virtual audience, sharing the same engaging and immersive experience. Whether your viewers are across the country or across the room, VPC brings them all together to captivate your audience. Here come your buzzwords. That one, don't tell me no, show me how. And we developed that broadcast model within days of the pandemic happening. You know, believe it or not, when the pandemic was sort of on the cusp, we actually still had a team out in Los Angeles producing a show, and we produced a healthcare show with healthcare professionals on March 13th, really the day of the lockdown. That happened in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we actually rolled out this broadcast model before the lockdown because half of the doctors and nurses and medical practitioners would not come into the same room. So half were remote and half were in the room, semi-spaced apart, some wearing masks, some not. So we actually, before this promo was even done, we were actually even doing this work. So again, we were ahead of the curve. I'm gonna fly through here. I always wanted to know what I wanted to do. And I know a lot of you in school, you kind of find your way, you change majors, you change directions. I was a little bit different. I woke up one day in 1974, my brother was in law school, my sister, who was a lot smarter than both my brother and myself combined, was heading to university, and she ended up getting her doctorate. And I told my parents, I want to be a TV director. And they're like, what is that? And coming from a traditional Jewish home where you're an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer, or an education, they didn't quite understand it. So these three logos all have, are synonymous with that decision. When I made that decision in 1974, I watched a baseball game on NBC Sports. And those are the days when there was only one game a week. NBC Sports had a single game of the week on Saturday afternoon. I came to UMBC in 1980, maybe not for the right reasons, but my girlfriend at the time, who later became my first wife, came to UMBC. She was a biology major, ended up becoming a podiatrist, so I came to UMBC where there was no communications major, no television, no broadcast major, no entrepreneur, organization by any means. I was in not interdisciplinary studies because that didn't exist. It was called Option 2. It was the optional students who didn't fall in a traditional track, and I was able to develop a track. And that's a classic NBC logo, classic UMBC logo, maybe even Vivian's never even seen that. And here's a classic Baltimore Orioles logo. When the Orioles put in their Diamond Vision video board, Diamond Vision was even before Jumbotron. The Orioles came to various universities, and that's how I got my start in sports. So I was in school, and I basically got a full-time job with the Baltimore Orioles. So I was in on the ground floor. This is kind of a random slide, but I just need to remind you of a few things. The best days are ahead of you, and remember that. Right now the world is a little bit topsy-turvy. It's finding its way, it's breaking new ground, people are fighting with each other, but the best days are clearly ahead of you and are clearly ahead in this world. Entrepreneurs make up 75% of small business. Some graphs and these show that it's more, some show that it's a little bit less, but that's the average. It's not Amazon, it's not Tesla, and it's not Walmart. And the news constantly report on what these organizations are doing. Remember, what you are doing makes up the masses, even though you're doing it in smaller little chunks. I'll also throw out there, sometimes what you do as entrepreneurs may be of interesting markets to larger companies like Amazon, Tesla, and Walmart. So while they are not part of you, you may want to consider marketing to them long term. As entrepreneurs, we all wear many, many hats. And when you're an entrepreneur of one, which I'm assuming many of you are or will end up, and when I started the company, it was just myself, and my father had his own electroplating company. He started off by himself. You wear many hats. Today we're blessed to have 12 full-time people. We peaked at 17 full-time people, had to cut way back during the pandemic. We're up to 12. But I wear many, many hats. The CEO, the top person, business development, which is why we're all here today to talk. A number of positions in my production and technical field: executive producer, line producer, video director, stage manager, and show caller. We do programs like Saturday Night Live, if you watch those programs, where sets are moving in and out and actors are moving in and out. That's what a stage manager and a show caller or a showrunner help navigate during live programs. I'm a creative collaborator. Now, my two biggest areas of focus are mentorship and cheerleader. You want to cheer people on, you want to take them out of their comfort zone, and you want to mentor people to help grow. And that includes all of you. You saw my email address at the beginning of the presentation. You'll see it at the end. And Vivian and Kevin know. When I say you can email me or call me anytime for advice, for guidance, hey, what do you think? Should I go in this direction? You can do that, and I will respond. briefly at Oriole Park. So I was an employee of the Baltimore Orioles when the design of Oriole Park was coming about. They wanted to build a historic throwback stadium, but make it technologically state-of-the-art. So you had this old railroad warehouse with these steel structures, and they wanted to make it state-of-the-art. They brought me on to the design team to make it all work, and let's just say, you know, the rest is history. Oriole Park became one of the most famous, if not the most famous of all baseball stadia and football stadia in the modern era. And as you can see, it's cut off on this picture, but there's an analog clock at the top of the scoreboard, and I believe it's still there. But you have all this, you know, all this modern technology in a, you know, beautiful, open, trussing environment. So the company was founded after the opening of Oriole Park, because all these sports teams said, hey, who did that scoreboard? Who made this distributed sound system? You need to talk to that guy. So that's, and I had been, you know, producing sports, working with the Orioles, developing sort of this sports broadcasting niche, but the company started off as a design engineering firm. Move on down the road a little bit. Arguably, Raven Stadium is the best football experience in the country. And the widescreen, and here's a good and a bad, the widescreen video boards, first of its kind ever in professional sports. Myself and John Modell were sitting around drinking beer, and we said, why don't we bring the movie screen experience to sports? And football allows it because the game is across the field. It's not a wide field. It's not a basketball court or a hockey rink, and it's not a baseball diamond where you're working in 360. You're moving linearly. And that's what we did. A lot of sweat equity to make that work. Then brought that design several years later in the early 2000s to Chicago Soldier Field. Another historic building, an original historic building from the 1920s and 30s. They now call it the Spaceship, because if you've been to Chicago or seen it on television, half of it is historic, half of it is this stainless steel and very modern look. But we took these same video boards and cantilevered, hung them out on the edge of the stadium. The architecture is very different, where the video boards at the Raven Stadium are nestled inside. So the good is, the company continues to grow. Lesson learned, I didn't take the opportunity to maybe brand or patent some of the intellectual property that we were doing with widescreen production and, you know, cohesive, comprehensive control rooms in stadiums. Not that anyone else did it, but I missed an opportunity because I was too young. So I wanted to share that. Here's another sort of, next couple slides are just kind of, you know, sort of one-off images, but I need you to remember these. Work-life balance. You've got to have it. When you're an entrepreneur, it's very, very difficult, because it all relies on you. You got to find the funding, you got to come up with the creative concept, you got to sell the item. Family life suffers. And, you know, I still work a lot of hours, but when you're at a young, learn from my mistakes, again, the bad from the good. Find that balance, find those boundaries where you say, you know what, it's not worth making the sale, it's not worth jeopardizing your relationships, whether it's with kids, with spouses, your closest friends, your siblings. Find that balance. At 60, I am getting smarter. While I still work a lot of hours, I do find the balance. And my wife Patty now sees that. It's a slow progression. But if you can do this from the onset, it will help you. I guarantee you. This is something else that sort of resonated to me recently. Again, you see all the sort of the political dynamics between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and you're talking about, you know, democracy and so on and so forth. So this, you know, e pluribus unum has sort of, you know, rejuvenated me a little bit, but where it involves entrepreneurship, that saying, while it's, you know, it's on our currency, out of many becomes one. And you need to remember that as entrepreneurs, again, a lot of the times you start off as one. and then you collaborate with vendors, employees, other people in your life, but the goal is to make a unit out of whatever product or service that you are selling. What makes your product or service special? For us and for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's about being a boutique firm and a niche service. Again, there are a lot of production companies, there are a lot of video content companies, there are a lot of video engineering companies, bigger than us, smaller than us, better than us, but it's finding that niche, identifying the target audience and clients that can benefit from you, and you want to provide a boutique service. And the way I sort of describe a boutique service, for those of you that have attended events or have stayed at hotels like the Four Seasons or the Waldorf, it's not, the basics are there, like any other property from Hyatt and Marriott and Hilton. There's a bed, there are restaurants, there's a front desk, but the way you do it is at a higher level. You are extra polite to everyone. And, you know, instead of giving them a glass of water, maybe you give them bubbly water. It's those little extras that begin to separate. Of course, there's a price point for that level of service. If you get tap water, there may be no charge for it. If I give you a homemade cookie and sparkling water when you check in, you go, oh, this is very nice. But there's a reason why your room is $100 more. That's built in to the financial equation. But know the boutique, that, you know, if you are a boutique firm, you're a niche service. This one is really important, and I've struggled with this with our company, because people always say, what do you do best? We're a production company, we're a content company, we're an engineering firm, we're a design firm. So they say, who's your competition? I can't find anybody quite like us east of the Mississippi, but in those individual tracks, we have lots of competition. So for years, I didn't have a pitch going up in an elevator, and I'm outdating myself, because that's where you used to cut deals, either on the golf course or the elevator. Today, it's the, you know, it's what do you say on social media, Twitter and Instagram. But you have to be able to crystallize what you do in 140 words or less, 10 words or less, and be able to do it not going up 23 floors at a hotel or a business complex, but maybe only 3 floors. Questions? Concerns? Comments? Okay, I'm going to keep moving then. Remember these buzzwords. I call them the 4 C's, and all of us entrepreneurs, we got to have them. Courage, character, charisma, and curiosity. Curiosity continues to navigate you through all different sorts of things. In our company, we survived very worldly and historic events. 9/11, and actually we had people in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. when the Pentagon was hit. And maybe I'll tell you a sidebar about that after the formal presentation. I got a call from someone who was in the building when he told me what was going on. These other traits here you've got to have. You have to insulate yourself from the people who are telling you that you're not going to be successful, you don't have enough money, you're not going to be able to survive in the economy. But our company has survived 9/11, the recession of 2008, and a pandemic when you're not allowed to congregate. See, you've got to live by some or all of these key words. Referrals and networking. Our business is 90% on referrals and networking. You do one good job, hopefully you will get a referral that someone will say, hey, Eli, VPC did a great job. You should consider them for work. Networking. As outspoken as I may appear, you put me in a room with people that I don't know, and I might stand with a beverage in the corner and may not want to come out. Definitely that has been that maybe up until the last couple of years. And now I have a lot more poise and a lot more experience that I'm able to do that. And there are people that are born to be salespeople. And that's all they do. Sometimes they're so over the top, they'll sell you something even if you don't need it or even if they don't believe in it. So sometimes you have to watch out for those people. But referrals and networking. You have to be able to, again, it goes back to the elevator pitch, and hopefully you build a referral network that you get to meet other people and network. Very important. To show you the diversity, I call it diversity by the dozens, or at least one of my producers crystallized that idea for me. But again, goes back to that, that imposter syndrome. We do work for a company, Bridge Tower Media. Originally, they were local in Baltimore as the Daily Record. The Daily Record was bought out. During the pandemic, they were trying to figure out how to produce their award shows. They came to us and we did all their virtual broadcast programs. So all of a sudden, now we're doing work for Bridge Tower Media in Boise, Idaho, Portland, Oregon, New Orleans, Louisiana, Long Island, New York, among others. Comcast, we do work for cable and internet giant Comcast throughout the eastern region. Showtime Sound, another local entrepreneurial company in Frederick, Maryland, has strong connections with Live Nation. Prior to the pandemic, we weren't working in the concert space. Met them during the pandemic. They said, we'd like to work with you when we come out of this pandemic. And now we're out on tour with one of the hottest acts out there, Kevin Hart, comedian and actor, and also television personality. Pretty cool. Do work in the university space, Temple University in Philadelphia. As Vivian mentioned, we've been a long-time partner with UMBC, whether it's on the academic or institutional advancement side, commencement, convocation, heavily involved in the 50th anniversary of UMBC's celebration back in 2016. And we have a multi-year contract with, I won't necessarily call it the flagship institution in the university system of Maryland, because some people will say, well, that's Towson, that's UMBC, that's Salisbury, but certainly the largest school. We have a multi-year contract doing work in the president's office. As Vivian mentioned for UMBC, we were brought in 2016, the same year as the 50th anniversary. The America East Conference started an 11-year partnership with ESPN to put the broadcast sports games on the ESPN digital platforms, ESPN Plus and ESPN3. So they brought us in to help us model that with athletics, with Steve Levy, Zach Seidel, Dustin Roddy, if you know some of those colleagues in athletics. But the main focus there is to engage students and young alum, and they're basically running those broadcasts now. So there is an educational model built into that sports production model, and that's one of the things that we really like to do. Sticking with the diversity by the dozens real quick, and how am I doing on time? Not bad, and I'm halfway through the slideshow. BMW Championship. I'll give you a sales item. So BMW Championship hired us because they were in Baltimore 2 years ago at Caves Valley. We got 4 referrals, EPC. I think one of they hired us for 2 reasons. The 4 referrals we got were from high-level people, including the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. That's the foundation started by Cal Ripken Jr. and his brother Bill in honor of his father. We were also 10 miles away from the golf course, so close proximity. Hear me out briefly. The next year, they're in Wilmington, Delaware. They were very happy with our services. I came to them and said, we'd like to do it in Wilmington. Well, we may want to use a local company. We'll keep the pricing the same, and we'll treat it as a local job for us. The only thing we would ask, we may set up an Airbnb that in case our workers, our staff members end up working 18 hours or more, and we don't want them driving back for life safety reasons from Wilmington, Delaware back to the Baltimore area or wherever they live. Can you help us with those reimbursables? Or our prices may be a little higher to compensate for that. Fine. Knocked it out of the park. Or hole in one, I should say, for this. I flew out to Chicago 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, I noticed you bring your caterer in from Chicago, you bring your specialty furniture vendor in for the corporate suites from Florida. Would you ever entertain, because they're leaving the East Coast and they're now going to other venues. Would you even entertain bringing your AV vendor or technical vendor on the road with you? They said yes. I had to go to them. They didn't approach me, so we're now negotiating that contract now, but we're going to be doing a 3-year deal with them. We'll be handling the BMW Championship in Chicago, in Denver, and in 2025 it comes back to Baltimore. What we're not doing is the television broadcast. No involvement in that. But we're handling the AV services in the high-end, the boutique niche areas, the corporate suites, where the BMW sales representatives and marketing representatives are going to be rubbing elbows with people. And we handle their media area. So all the writers and radio and people for press conferences, we're handling that. CIAA, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, it's where all the historic black colleges and universities, you know, I call it sort of the adjunct to the NCAA. So Howard University, Morgan State University, those historic black colleges and universities have an athletic conference. Their men's and women's basketball tournament is now held in Baltimore. When I heard it was going to be in Baltimore, I immediately went to Charlotte the last year of the tournament to observe the tournament and rub some elbows with people who I thought would become decision makers. So they were interested in us. Then the pandemic hit, and the first year of the tournament, they didn't even have a tournament. But I kept in touch. I stayed in touch with them. And in 2021 was the first year of an in-person tournament at the Royal Farm Arena. Well, no longer the Royal Farm Arena. It's going to be renamed again when the building reopens. But we now have a multi-year contract with the CIAA, handling their scoreboard presentation and their press conference facilities. Pittsburgh Steelers, pretty good client to have on your client list. The Steelers name speaks for itself. Some of our not so that's some of our sports clients. Now some of our nonprofits, Alzheimer's Association, Maryland chapter, just picked up a project with Kennedy Krieger. No, I do know the alphabet. Everything is in alphabetical order. There's a reason why U is next to K and before the League for People with Disabilities, and I'm going to tell you that story. We submitted a proposal to the USO, great military organization that provides entertainment services and fundraising to military officers and their family. I was in Jacksonville. Our company was producing the preseason game for the Steelers on August 20th, and I was in Jacksonville. Now here is an entrepreneur story. From the USO, we came in second for their gala. And this is a project, I put 24 pages of information down. I really wanted this project for our company. They said we raised a lot of eyebrows at the USO, but we didn't get it. That happened at 3 p.m. on the 18th, the day before our setup day at the Steelers. 4 hours later, I get a random email from a random colleague in the industry. Hey Eli, do you still create video content? Yes. Well, my husband works for Kennedy Krieger Institute, a world-renowned mental health organization which is affiliated with the Johns Hopkins University and Medical System, which happens to be based in Baltimore. Connected me with her husband. And he gave me this abstract, we want to produce this video content for military people and families and their mental health. I need a proposal right away. Here's that work-life balance again. And I can't tell you, I digress, but there were so many years that I worked. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Would I do it all again? There's that balance. I've got a lot of work done over those times, but sometimes, you need to take time for those holidays. He said he needed a proposal right away. All the proposals he got from vendors he didn't like, and we came highly recommended. I didn't even know what I was bidding. I said, I'm getting ready to produce a football game. That takes an incredible amount of effort. I will give you a narrative by 11 p.m. tonight. It won't be a formal proposal, but you'll see pieces of a proposal in there. And I just, pardon my language, vomited on an email. I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote for a couple of hours, and I emailed it off at 10:57 p.m. I made my deadline. They were waiting, didn't know it, they were waiting. At 11:10 p.m., I get an email back, wow, it looks like you have the assets and resources that might be able to become our partner. Finish your football game and let's circle back early the next week. Fade to black, fade back up. I won't bore you with the details. This project is funded by the United States Department of Defense from the federal government. They said there would be a phase 1 of a project. We're basically in negotiations now to do 3 phases of a project over 3 years. So while I was disappointed with the USO, and I know we will work for the USO one day, that time will come. The time is not now. But that entrepreneur spirit, the curiosity, the character, the charisma, the courage, I wrote enough to get them interested, and weeks later, basically, we have a contract, and our first taping day is next week. With age comes wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Billy Ocean. He is a musician. Look him up. You may like his music. It's reggae, it's disco, very big in the 1980s. But this is actually on my footer of my email, because as you get older and as you attain more experience, you will become better entrepreneurs. And that's why I go back to saying, at 60, I have a better chance of taking off Thanksgiving than when I was 25, 35, 45, maybe even 55. I've learned from experience and examples to help guide me to make better decisions and right decisions for myself, for my family, and for the company. So remember that. Learn from every experience. This is another important life lesson, and I may outdate myself on this one. Does anyone know what this photo is? From the student or alumni base?
Is the miracle?
Yes, this is the Miracle on Ice, 1980. I also kind of chose this just because of the Russia-United States dynamics that's currently unfolding. Russia had always had the superior hockey program for the Winter Olympics. The United States won the gold that year. They beat Russia, I believe it was in the semifinal or the silver medalist round. Never was supposed to happen. You can do anything as entrepreneurs. But once you branch outside of just yourself, you need the right talent pool to help get you there. It starts off as you, because it's your idea, it's your service, it's your uniqueness of a craft, or which makes you stand out. But you need a lot of people to help share that vision and carry your vision down the road. Kevin and I were just talking about this. There's no business like show business, and that is certainly true. But I have a great friend who I actually have to call because he called to wish me a happy Rosh Hashanah the other day. He's a big-time lawyer in Hollywood. And this is again business sense for you. Show business. We all probably look at it as the glitz, the glamour, the lights, the stars who you meet. That's true. But he told me, show business, it's 2 words. There's the show part, there's the ta-da part, and then there's the business. You've got to make money. You absolutely need to have a business plan. Our company did not. We just grew exponentially. We got the right clients early. Part of getting those right clients early, we're giving away our services for little to no money to kind of build that database. And I just mentioned that to you, that you need to pick your places to undervalue your service to get in the door, but make sure you elevate your fee structure as quickly as you can. And if you don't with that client, for the next couple of sales, don't tell them you gave that one away, and hopefully they won't say, hey, he did it for $1 an hour, and then you tell them you're $100 an hour for the next sale. So you need a business plan, because eventually you will probably need some money to carry your venture, whether it's from a private investor or a bank, and create a fair business partners agreement. The company was just mine for the first 8 years, took on 2 business partners who are incredibly talented and dedicated human beings. But the business partnership agreement, I would say, is not necessarily one that is solidified when the company actually becomes successful, and the business, which just turned 30 years young this past July, the business model between partners is a little bit uncomfortable now. So even in your infancy as a company, and you're going to take on investors or business partners, have a plan for an exit strategy or clear direction, who's in charge, or if you're equal, that you're truly equal more than the money that you put in. The app generation, just a word of advice, remember how to write. I know you text, you move quickly. Social media doesn't have really any, grammar rules associated with it. But when you develop your own website, when you do your curriculum vitae or your resume, when you write cover letters, be thoughtful in what you write. You may not necessarily agree with me now or believe me, but the skill of writing is a lost craft, and it will come back. It will become more notable than it is currently today. And what I hear from some of our clients, or even, hopefully future clients like the USO, they say you articulate exactly what you can do very well with the powerful of the words that I write. So please take the time to write very well, whether it's press briefings, proposals, your resume, your business plan, a thank you letter, whatever it is. Please learn to accurately write. Hopefully this won't offend anybody. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Anything in moderation is good, and with balance, even French fries. You see enough reports saying this is bad for you, this is bad for you. I'm a firm believer. Anything in moderation is good, because you're over over-excessing in any particular one area. I threw this in, I saw this at a presentation from another colleague recently, car or car phone. Which one would you eliminate? A lot of people these days are eliminating automobiles because they live in the city. They're much more green conscious in terms of, the atmosphere and the environment. Maybe they can't afford an electric car, and they can't live without their smartphone. I would sort of challenge the other way. It goes back to sort of this underlying message: lose the smartphone and spend more time with family, or just think time. When you disconnect and you have think time, you will exponentially go further down the road because your brain has been allowed to rest. Another sort of interesting topic, and just something for you to consider as you consider your businesses. Where do you think we are? The big buzzword now is, I can do everything remote. And frankly, there are some businesses that can. But in our business, all of our employees wanted to come back in, so we've actually been safely together since June of 2020, more than most other companies. The key takeaway here is this human collaboration. And I call this also the bump-in effect. Yes, you can do a lot of meetings on Zoom and Teams and WebEx and other platforms, but the bump-in effect is what I call sort of you bump in at the water cooler. And you might say, how was your weekend? and you genuinely care. Or what did you think of that Ravens game? I think it's time for Coach Harbaugh to go. Never would have tried for a touchdown on 4th down. I would have gone for the safe field goal. Or it's, hey, how's that project that you're working on? Or wasn't I supposed to help you with this aspect of it? And then you zip into the person's office or edit suite. When you are physically removed, you lose that human collaboration and human touch. Or you've got to write it down on a notepad or in a notes part of your app, and then you got to make sure you bring it up in your next meeting. So there's a lot to say about human and being in person engagement. I remind you that any publicity is good publicity. In the old days, for me, Vivian, and Kevin, it was your 15 seconds of fame, or your 15 minutes of fame. Now in the world of social media, it's about your 15 seconds of fame, or are you trending somewhere? But I really firmly believe any publicity is good publicity. Even if it's bad publicity, you need to sit back as an entrepreneur and be able to spin it to try to turn it into a positive. And if you have a PR or a marketing firm behind you, or someone with PR or marketing background, hopefully they can also help you. But any publicity and getting your name out there is good. A few extra pieces of advice, and I'm near the end of the presentation. What you wear matters, in person and virtually. Hopefully my headroom's not being cut off, but there's a reason why I wear the clothes that I do. Because you always look like you are in charge. And one of the greatest stories I will tell, or I've told, and I'll keep this person's name private just in case this does go as an on-demand podcast. I met a sports franchise owner, and we were on a basketball court one day, and he thought I was actually the visiting team's owner or coach or upper management. And it turned out I was just his television director for the day. And he was stunned, because I've never met a television director who looked like this. And I said, sir, I always represent myself, I always represent my company, and I also always represent my client and your brand. And the difference between us and a bank account, probably $100 million. And he said, you know what? You're right, and I appreciate that, and nice meeting you, and he walked away. But what you wear really does matter, or how you carry yourself. Even if you're just in a t-shirt and jeans, make it a clean t-shirt and jeans, you just always need to carry yourself and present well. Build relationships with existing clients. Understand them and their brand. Because once you get in the door, they may look at you for one service, you may look at them for one service. But as you build the rapport, you get to know their families, what makes them tick, you will find that there are other opportunities. And part of, I would call my medium sell is, oh, I didn't know you did that. Did you know that we did that? And if you have an existing relationship or vendor, I don't want to encroach on that. But if you're looking for a different way of doing it, a better way of doing it, a review of a price model, I'm hoping you'd at least give us a chance. Leverage high-profile clients to attract others. I go back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I go to our nonprofit clients, and I just happen to mention, we've had the Pittsburgh Steelers as a client for 23 years. I don't even have to tell them what we're doing for them. They just hear the Steelers, or the Baltimore Ravens, or Comcast, or UMBC, and they go, you know what? If you're working for them, you got to be able to help us. So you have to be able to leverage those brands. We're very blessed to be able to have those type of names. Maybe when you start off, not so much. One of the things that I mentioned to potential employees, or just people who reach out to me to say, what do you think of my resume? And maybe it says Nordstrom's, sales associate. That doesn't tell me anything. So what I begin to ask people, and I try to leverage that sales associate, was there ever an opportunity where you were the assistant manager of the day? or you were the manager of the day, and you actually managed 10 people. It gets them thinking. Or were you responsible for managing an overnight inventory for tractor trailer, and I'm making this stuff up, and I make it up when I have the conversation, but 4 tractor trailers of clothing come in, and it's your responsibility to make sure all the clothing boxes come off, and it goes into the warehouse, and it comes out of the boxes and onto the racks. It's a management role, and it gets them thinking. Now, blossom this sales associate one-liner of I sat behind a cash register. Tell me the things that you did even once. Tell me the things that you are capable of doing. And now we can have a conversation about how you might be able to work for us or how you might be able to position another employment. Always be honest with yourself, your staff, and your clients. You have to be honest and true to yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, anybody around you will have no faith in you. You always have to be upfront. Choice, not chance, determines your destination. That's a quote by Greek mythologist Aristotle. Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, your former, previous great president at this university, used it often. You make the choice. Don't let someone make the choice for you. As entrepreneurs, you are taking a chance, but put the chance in your court and the choice in your court. Don't let your mother or father say, don't take that chance. Your business partner, don't take that chance. Your banker, don't take that chance. If someone else says no, you show me how, you go through another path. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, great man. Dr. Darrell Pines, president of the University of Maryland, College Park. He uses this in one of his, married it together with a Venn diagram. I do remember my arithmetic in elementary school. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Dr. Pines, that adversity can become opportunity. So take that struggle, make it an opportunity. This is another big one. Dave Grohl of Nirvana. You may know him from Foo Fighters. Again, I'm outdating myself. Nirvana, part of the grunge music era. You will only be great at things you love to do. And I'm hoping you see that with what I briefly shared with you today from my career. Don't pursue a career that you hate to do. Life is too damn short to let someone else's opinion steer the wheel. And I'm hoping that all of you are going to find your way or have that passion now for what you want to do. This is an anonymous quote. A true winner celebrates exhaustion as a measure of their complete effort. Go back to the USO example. You don't always have to win, but exhaust yourself. And if you exhaust yourself and you did the best job you can, you're a winner. Whether you actually won the job, you won the race or not. But don't say woulda, shoulda, coulda. Go all the way through. Now, go back to that balance of work-life balance. Sometimes those conflict and compete with each other. But exhaust yourself while trying to maintain balance.
Eli, we're going to have to cut this short soon. Are you exhausted with all the energy you put into this?
Final quote. Some dream of success and others stay awake to achieve it. That is my own quote. I thank you very much for your time.
And we thank you very much. Thank you.